Okay, so we don't have a lot of time with you today, but the big ideas that we want to cover and give you a little time to think about is what you see here on the slide. Finding a way to ground ourselves and finding pause, finding a way to set an intention, and we might talk to you about that in a different way, a different verbiage than intention itself. The recipe for self-care, so get ready for that. Why mindfulness is important, and then how yoga could also support that, if that's your jam. May not be, and that's okay. So the three areas of a self-care recipe would be finding inner safety, having mindfulness, and finding time for balance. Let's keep on going, Megan. Doing great. And you can go to the next one. Thank you. So we're going to talk about inner safety. And the way that we're going to get things started is to give you a moment to find pause and to recognize the good things that are going on in your life, in this world, however that looks to you. And I'm borrowing from a resource from christyzimmer.com. It might be something you'll look at later. But you can go to the next slide, Megan. And what I'm going to do is we're not taking 10 minutes by any means, but sometimes when we think about what is good that's going on, it's hard to think of it broadly. So here are some guiding questions that you might think of for yourself, guiding questions that you might use when you're working with different stakeholders or clients or families. You all are coming at this work from kind of different platforms. So however you might want to think about that. But I'm just going to give you a few minutes to think about these big questions and maybe jot down where you are today with recognizing these items. So go ahead. I'm just going to set my timer for a couple of minutes and just go ahead and think about these items. Okay, hopefully that gave everyone enough time to just take a moment to think about things in your own world and not about anyone else or any other thing. But items like this particular document that you're looking at give us a way to just give ourselves permission to think about ourselves in a way that, or in our own lives in a way that doesn't have to feel like it's self-serving or that you don't have the time to do it, that help us find some grounding in the day just in where our thoughts go. So this is just an example of something you might use with the different individuals or groups that you work with to be able to provide just some sentence starters that get us out of maybe that brain pattern that we're in at the moment when life is just really, really big. So I don't know if anyone wants to just share out something about this. I thought maybe somebody was typing for a moment, maybe you, Megan, I'm not sure. But I can just tell you, I just came off a vacation, so it's easy for me to think about places that I adore. That's a quick thing for me to jot in there. But for someone who maybe has been stressed and working a lot every single day, many hours, and then home to children and the stressors of life, that might not be very easy. So just understanding that we all come at this from a different place. So give you a little bit of pause if anyone wants to say something about recognizing the good stuff. And if not, we can go to the next slide.
One of the things, Terry, that I really like about this particular slide or this particular page is there's so many studies out there about gratitude journals and maybe making a point every day to find things that we feel grateful for. This one, sometimes it just seems so broad. I like this one because it kind of clues in your thoughts a little bit. And so in using something similar with staff, it's not quite as abstract, and it's a little bit easier to focus your thoughts and find things to look forward to. And even using it with younger, with students and things like that, this is something that is tangible for them.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Journaling can be, go ahead. Thank you, Dana.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm so happy you're talking.
You know, when I started this, I just started with things and people, and all of a sudden, you know, I didn't go beyond that. I just started writing down all the people in my life that who I adore, who I'm grateful for, and then places started picking up and other things in my life. So it was like, oh my goodness, I haven't even gotten to the other statements. So anyway, it's a good exercise for sure.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing. And you know, those human connections that we can make are so important. Sometimes it feels like it's us against the world. And even getting on the call today, and it's like, oh, I know Erin, I know Larissa, I know Jill, and then Dana, you popped up, and I was like, oh, I know Jill, I know Dana from the yoga studio. And all of a sudden, I just felt like I was enveloped in this community of support. And I don't even know some of you very well. It just feels good. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So that is one way to get grounded in our day, or to get grounded in whatever it is we're about to do, finding some pause to think about what's positive. All right, go ahead, Megan. So another way that we can become present in our day is finding that time for pause, and we can do that through breath. We can do that through moments of gratitude, like Jill had said. And sometimes we think of it as setting an intention for our day, or like Jill likes to call it, finding your word. So I'm going to just lead us all through a breathing exercise. And if you're uncomfortable in having your camera on during this part, I welcome you to I guess, cancel your video for a moment if you'd like to. You don't need to by any means. And when we go into a breathing exercise, it's really up to you. You can stand, you can sit, you can lay down, but it doesn't have to be anything formal. It's just an act in a position that we put ourselves in, that we can come into a place of thinking about nothing but our breath. And I'm going to help you do that. So if you want to find a comfortable position, I'm going to take you through what we would call mindful breathing. And this exercise comes from a book that Jill and I are going to give 2 copies of this book away at the end of our time today. So this is just a little sample, a little teaser of what is to come if you were to get this book. So with mindful breathing, I'm going to just talk you through something. But when we are coming into a breathing exercise, the thing we want to do is think about nothing but our breath. So to begin, I want you to just recognize your breath. Don't change your breath, just recognize your breath and determine, does it feel shallow? Does it feel deep? And you're just noticing, not with judgment, just what is. So now if you want to just soften your gaze, close your eyes, whatever feels comfortable to you. I'm just going to talk us through a very short chant. And this is something that you could say to yourself when you decide to practice breathing to come into mindfulness in your day. So as you're thinking about your breath, just become aware of it. And as you breathe, you can say to yourself, breathing in, I am aware of my breath, of my in-breath. Breathing out, I am aware of my out-breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I release the tension in my body. Take another breath in. And as you breathe out, try to push that breath out just a little further than you did the time before. Breathing out, I am aware of my out-breath. Breathing in again. And as you release your breath this time, do you feel new release of the tension in your body? I am breathing in, maybe taking a bigger breath, and breathing out, let it all go, let all your breath go. And then you can start to open your eyes if your eyes are closed. And as you can see, that didn't take very much time. But if we don't have something to say or guide ourselves into the breathing, it can be very difficult to give yourself the time and space to just breathe. So as we talk about mindfulness and yoga and all of these words together, yoga does not have to look any one certain way. It's the way that you come into pause and a way to release tension that matters. So even when we are just breathing and doing nothing else, we are doing an active yoga. So it doesn't have to be anything formal. So what we know is that when we are conscious of our breath and we're giving our body that time to go ahead and breathe, we're also bringing a release of the tension that we may not even be aware of. So as we do that breathing, our shoulders start to relax, our belly might start to soften, and all of that front part of our body that's always ready as a defense, just the way that we are made, that we're always kind of, the front part of our body is always like defensive, like we're going to be ready for whatever comes at us. So as we breathe, we forget about those other things, and naturally we just stop thinking. What we might call the monkey mind just starts to go away. It might come back pretty quickly, but at least we've given ourselves the permission and the opportunity to breathe. So Jill, would you like to talk about finding your word and how you use that with the staff that you support or children that you support?
Absolutely. Although before I go to that, I want to say, Terri, with the breath work, a place that I find time for the breath work every day is when this sounds a little silly, but when I drive into my garage at the end of the day and turn off my car, I make a point before I grab all my things to get out of the car and go into the house. I actually make a point to do at least, close my eyes, 3 deep breaths to let go of the school day, so that, just mindfully setting aside everything that's come from the day. And not to say I don't pick it up later, but so that when I walk in the house and I'm with my family, I'm setting aside the rest of the day. So it's in your car, in your garage is like a great little quiet space, and truly even just 3 breaths can make a big difference of how you start your evening after a long day at work. So just a thought on another place to do that kind of breath work. As far as finding your word, oftentimes in yoga or meditation, you're asked to set an intention. And I remember long ago thinking, oh my gosh, I don't even know what that means. I don't know what my intention would be. That seems so grand. And so last year, what I presented to staff that's really stuck for some and has certainly stuck for me was, rather than setting an intention or a purpose, was to find a word. And we went through a whole exercise of finding a word, meaning a word that you want to embrace for the day, a word that you want to embrace for the month or for the year, maybe something that you want to embody, or something that you're hoping is going to come to you. And so we found our words last year and wrote them down and referred back to them. And that was in January, before we even knew really what was coming at us. And people said, wow, you know, I wrote that word down and I stuck it on my computer and I came back to it, you know, time and time again as I was going through this, and it was really powerful. And I took that, and I mentioned I do a daily gratitude writing in for myself, and what worked for me, rather than keeping one word that I resonated on month after month, was every day thinking of a word, just what came to me. And it might be quiet, it might be confident, it might be present, it might be healthy, like a day where I just wanted to eat healthy. It might be breathe, to find a day where I needed it. And if I wrote that down, when I do write that down at the beginning of the day, I can bring myself back to it in the moment. And so it's just that really great reminder that mindfulness does not necessarily mean forcing yourself to relax. Mindfulness is really more finding the intention to focus, or to notice what's going on with your body and your mind and in your environment. So finding a word, I think my word today was to focus, because I had many things going on today. Finding that word and then following it throughout the day has been really powerful for me. And for my staff, using that sort of exercise to find a word that they could stick with really had an impact this year to start our year, because we knew it would be a challenging year. We went with grit, grace, gratitude, and growth. And every week I send out, you know, a schedule of what's going on, and every week I try to refer back to those words. And once you put those words in motion, you start to find them throughout your life. And then every time you see one of those words, it kind of brings you back and puts you in the moment. So I encourage you to think about if you could just find a word a day that might help you carry yourself through, or something that you want to bring to yourself, or something that you want to give back to the universe or to your community.
That is great. Thank you, Jill. And I don't know if any of you, I think we may still have several cameras that are off, which is totally fine. This is for you where you need to be today. But if anyone would like to just type into the chat, maybe a word or how this has resonated with you, please feel free to do that, or unmute your mic and just say, hey, I have something to say. And we are very happy to have this be as interactive as you would like it to be today. So thank you. We can go to the next slide, please, Megan. The book that I was reading the breathing exercise out of is on your screen now, and it's called Work. And the whole gist of this book is how to find joy and meaning in each hour of the day. It's a short little book. We at the OPI did this as a book study a couple of years ago, when it just got to that point in the year where morale was down and people were tired, and it was not even COVID yet. This is 2 years ago, so pre-COVID. And it was really, really well received, and mostly because it seems that at work we were so driven that we have a hard time giving ourselves the permission to do something that supports our inner self. And so, like you saw in the agenda, or the loose agenda, that is one of the things we really wanted to come across with today, is that providing yourself the space to take care of you will only make you better in the work that you're trying to accomplish. And you're all working in a field where taking on other people's problems is what we do. So this is just a great resource. It's a small little book. I have 2 copies in my office that I will be happy to send out at the end. So Megan, you can maybe be thinking about how we might go about doing a drawing, but that is what this book is all about. You can go to the next slide, please. And the mindful breathing is, I just wanted to tell you, if you were to get this book, on page 32, there's a breathing chant. If you want to jot that down for when you're so lucky that you win the book, or maybe you order the book if you do not win it. So page 12 and page 32 are both books that are both parts of the book that really deal with this idea of mindful breathing. And then we're going to go to the next slide. And so you see a picture here of an animal. And one of the interesting things about wildlife, or animals in general, that we are not good at as humans is that animals, we can say, someone much wiser than I said this once, that we are all animals in clothing. So we all are made up, animals in the wild, our domestic pets, humans, we're all kind of made up of the same, we'll just call it material for now. But what animals are able to do that we are not very innate at doing is that when stress and trauma comes their way, they shake it off and they're able to move about what it is they're doing, caring for their young, maybe protecting their turf or whatever it is. So this is just a visual of a zebra shaking it off after maybe something that was traumatic, maybe a predator coming in its way or whatever. But what it is that by tremoring and shaking, we're releasing the adrenaline and the cortisol that gets built up in our bodies when we're always stressed and we're always in that forward motion. So this activity is called Shake It Off, and I will not ask anyone to have to do this, but if you want to just join along as I talk about it, actually, Megan, on the next slide, is there a link by any chance? Nope, I might have messed that up. That's okay. It's in the slides and you can have it later, so I'll be the person to do it. So if you would like to go through this with us for just a moment, when we're doing a Shake It Off exercise, it might be that you're standing and you're noticing the bottoms of your feet and that you're noticing the connection of all four corners of your feet into the floor. So you're standing in a way, I like to describe this as if a toddler were running at you at full force, would you be able to continue to stand? So your knees are loose and you're just standing with your feet very connected to the ground. And then with your arms just hanging down by your sides, maybe you just start to shake your hands and your elbows, but the rest of your body is pretty still. And you just start to notice that when you put that energy into shaking through your arms, the rest of your body finds some relaxation that you're not even having to do any control of making it do that. And then as you're still and your arms are moving, I know you can't see me very well, maybe you start to bring your shoulders to the right and the left and you let your arms start to swing. Like if you were holding a pen and you had a string on each side, as you turned your pen, it would start to flip back and forth. So maybe you start to then take your hands and pat the sides of your body and you're just swinging easily from side to side. So even this is requiring you to think about movement rather than, again, that monkey business that's going on in your head, and you're releasing all the thoughts that have maybe brought you down during the day. And if you're doing this and then you think, oh, I think I could even move more of my body because moving my body feels extremely good. Maybe you widen the stance of your legs and you get a bend in your knees, and maybe you start to bring more parts of your body into this motion. And if it feels good to you, you might even bring your front body forward. So like if you were going to hang your head in your arms, obviously I cannot demonstrate that for you here. But maybe you want to just start swinging your arms down and dropping your head and coming up and swinging your head down and back up. So kind of like you're throwing a tantrum, but you're doing it with breath. So by finding time and space in our day to just get the shake off, or maybe you just start shaking your arms like maybe you're just doing like this crazy dance. And everybody do that. You can do it behind your camera, or you can just watch the rest of us be crazy. But if you do that and you start going really, really hard, and then all of a sudden you just stop, feel what happens in your body. You feel all of those little nerve endings in your fingers, maybe at the top of your head. You might feel a little bit winded, and that's okay too. And we take that big breath. We've just let a whole lot go without having to put very much effort into it, and doing something that is calming to our nervous system. So shaking it off. We throw tantrums for a reason. We might not have our brains in the right place when we're throwing a tantrum, but after a tantrum's over, we usually feel pretty good. So that's the idea of shake it off. In the resources that are in this presentation that Megan will share with all of you are videos on how to do shake it off for just yourself, and how to take that into a yoga flow if that feels good to you. But just that idea that it is normal that we need to let that energy go. We've got to get that energy out of our bodies to free up this ability to be able to be mindful and to come back to the breath. So thank you if you participated. I'm proud of you. Thank you, Megan and Jill. I can see you there. And Megan, we can go to our next slide. But is there anyone who has a question about that? Maybe how it landed with you, or that you're like, why did we invite you here today to put us through this craziness? Please feel free to speak up.
It just struck me how naturally when we don't, when we just follow the lead of children who haven't been disconnected from things, these are all things that children do naturally, and that sadly, sometimes I see tall people trying to get them to stop doing. And this is, I was just thinking of that. If we took the leads of the little ones a little more, we'd have some of this foundational mindfulness stuff going on, and shaking our bodies out and shaking it off.
Absolutely, Jamie, I agree with you. I heard someone earlier today, I was in an early childhood stakeholders meeting with the universities today, and someone said, you had to just say, what are children? And someone said, the smartest people in the room. And it's true. Like if we just look to them for these ideas, it's probably right in front of our faces. Thank you very much. Okay, so this says mindfulness, but we are kind of in the act of mindfulness right now, so let's keep on going. The one thing that I think about a lot with mindfulness is it's letting go of being maybe right and being the smartest person in the room, and listening. So on this slide, you just see a few ideas that mindfulness is the openness to new information and different points of view. So allowing ourselves to listen without judgment is important, and it leads us to be curious, and it leads us to be able to be more mindful. When we're playful and nimble, we just had a great example of that, shaking it out. It helps us just release, and we don't have to live in those narrow traps and definitions of what maybe society and the world is telling us, what things need to look and feel and sound like. And then intentionally searching for and noticing the new and the different. So being curious, just noticing. And when we're breathing well and we're letting go of things, we're able to do that better. So go ahead.
Also, not moving on to that next topic. So oftentimes in listening or interacting, we're more thinking about how we're going to respond, or how we're going to solve the problem, or what part comes next. And being mindful is really staying right in that moment, and being curious, and not jumping to, oh, I'm going to say this in response, or this happened to me and I need to share it. But really rather just staying right there and finding that pause and giving yourself time. You don't have to respond right away. You can listen to all of it and absorb, and then react, respond, or not. So I think that's a big part of mindfulness that we sometimes, especially in our world of being caregivers, we're wanting to take care or to solve something, and so we're always jumping to that next step rather than just being right in that moment.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jill. Okay, so it moves us on to the third part of that recipe for self-care is finding balance. And next slide, please. So you may have seen this before in other parts of your work, but the life balance wheel is just a nice way to try to determine where you're stuck. So sometimes we are feeling so stressed and overwhelmed and maybe underwhelmed on some things, and it's really hard to identify where that's happening to us. So what this wheel is it just takes different components of life, from your relationships to your physical health to your what's happening at work and your finances and all those parts that I guess we could just call this like the adulting wheel, all those things that are coming at us as an adult. And if you were going to look at this and you think, oh boy, is there anything on this wheel that's going really well for me? So maybe tying this back to that first activity we did. And if there are only 1 to 3 things that are going well for you, then you may be in what we would consider a suffering state where you really do need some support to help get unstuck. If you are doing well or things feel good to you and solid to you, 4 to 6 items on this wheel, it would be considered that you're surviving. You're making it. It's okay. COVID's tough, but I'm doing okay. If you can say that you are doing well in 7 to 10 of these items, maybe you are at a thriving stage. But the thing that I always try to remind myself on this is on Monday, after a vacation of hiking mountains, I'm feeling like I'm thriving. But by Friday, I may feel like I'm suffering. So it really is not static. It's definitely something that ebbs and flows. And I think just bringing our mind back to it. And by identifying where things are working and where they are not, then at least it's like how to eat an elephant, right? So you just have to do a piece at a time. And so maybe identifying what would be a first step in being able to become more grounded and more healthy, then this is just a wheel to help you. Again, it just names the categories. So a life balance wheel is a nice activity when you're working with individuals who maybe are living with trauma or living with a lot of stressors that they don't know how to get out of. So I like to use this. I like to come back to this often, and I direct my team to this often also, because at work, sometimes we can't really focus on all of these items, but at least doing some self-reflection on what is working and what is not. Next slide, please. So I think Jill already has offered some really excellent ideas on how we can set that culture of mindfulness in the workplace. Not all of you work directly with children, but you all work with individuals who are working with children. So the activity or the ideas that we're sharing with you may be for the adults, they may be for you, they may be for children. So it's just kind of all encompassing. But following our presentation today, if you have a curiosity or would like more information or even a thought partner on some of these things, Jill and I are both very willing and happy to support you if you would like to have more support in whatever the work it is that you do of supporting your groups with mindfulness. Next slide, please. So one thing we can do is to intentionally dedicate time and space for being mindful. I'm not going to read everything that is on the slide, but this is certainly here for you. But you've already heard that we don't have to do anything formal, that oftentimes is just identifying where you do have the time and who your people are to be able to find mindfulness in your day. Jill, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think there are other ways we can subtly help ourselves remember to be mindful, and it could be just anything that you connect with. So it could be that special sticker from your vacation that's on your water bottle that you put there to remind yourself when you're sitting at your desk of a time of joy, or or maybe it's a string around your wrist, or a song that I have a certain song that I listen to in my car if I'm feeling really stressed out, because I know it's going to boost my mood, and it's going to be the same song every single time, but it kind of brings me back to that middle ground of being more balanced and not letting my thoughts get away from me, and trying to be really in the moment. So anything really that you can connect with that brings you to a more inward focus and a more peaceful mind, or a more curious mind, I think is really important. And it just that reminder, it doesn't have to be 5 or 10 minutes. It can be just purposefully putting that inspirational quote on your computer screen, something just to remind yourself. I have a quote on my mirror where I get ready in the morning and I'm running around frantically that says, be in love with your life, every moment of it. And it's like, oh, yes. You know, just that reminder to start your day. Little things like that, I think, can really help you be mindful, or remind yourself to be mindful as you move through your day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. One of my favorite parts of this slide is the second bullet where it says time can be created from squandered time. If we never have time to do the things that feel joyous to us, life is not that much fun. So we may not feel that we have the time to spend the time finding joy, having coffee with a friend, or whatever it might be. There always seems to be a little more time in the day once you've done something that is pleasurable. So thank you. Next slide, please. This next slide is just a way of finding mindfulness in your day, and Jill's already spoken to this well, that it doesn't have to be a formal thing. I love the idea of the sticker on the water bottle reminding us what we love to do when we're not doing our formal work. But this, again, is just a good visual on ways to add mindfulness into your day without having it be something that is too big. So the first one, you notice it says do a body scan of paying attention to the tensions and stress. We didn't necessarily do that, but we did it through our breathing exercise without even having to really go through this. Starting your day with a yoga sun salutation. You may not be a yogi, and yoga may not feel good to your body, but we're all breathers and we're all thinkers. And so finding that time even just through breath. And we have that next on take a break to check in on your breathing and to find a way to relax at the end of your day. I do not take time at the end of the day to meditate, but I do try to find time to get outside and do mindful walking. So maybe a hike or a walk or a run that does not involve anything that had to do with my professional life. Is just letting things go. So there is some science behind this. Oh my goodness, Jamie, will you say that to everyone? That is fabulous.
I create my computer passwords to be affirmations, so I have to do it every day. It's a little embarrassing when I have to tell my IT guy what my password is, but I think he's getting into it too, so.
I love that so much. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please, Megan. So a culture of mindfulness. I think Jill has done a great job of describing to us how she has created a culture of mindfulness within her school. So you may not think of that as what a principal or a school leader would do, but I just can't say enough how important it is that we take care of ourselves to be able to take care of those who are looking to us for direction and support throughout the day. So if you can create that culture of mindfulness, or if you want support in creating that culture of mindfulness, I know a few people who would love to help you do that. Maybe even Megan, since she had this great idea to have us come today. Next slide, please. So then why yoga? It doesn't have to be yoga. Like I said, like Jill has said, it might just be turning off the engine of your car and breathing. It might be walking or hiking. Yoga is a complex thing. We think of it as, you know, for the super flexible, super chill individuals of our world, but it's so much more than that. We can think like a yogi, we can move like a yogi, but basically it's just the way in which we are living our lives. So next slide, please. You might know about yoga, and you may know about the Sanskrit, which is the ancient language of the science of yoga. But even if we just look here, if we take breathing into our day, if we have those words or those affirmations, behind each of these bullets is the Sanskrit word for each of these ideas. In your day, you may use some visual imagery to think of something that's lovely instead of the horrible situation that you're finding yourself in. The next are hand gestures and mudras. So in yoga, you might see people hold their hands in a certain way, touching their fingers, putting their hands to their chests. But how I like to think about hand gestures is it's a way for me to find grounding in when I'm in a place where it doesn't feel that great. That doesn't have to be harmful. So when I think harmful, I mean, I'm not going to end up at the chiropractor the next day. So finding a way to find some relaxation through our shoulders, standing firmly, but with some ease. The next is sound. So maybe it's something we say, maybe it's something we chant, maybe it's the music that we listen to. Right now, we are practicing a form of yoga in that we're supporting each other. We are a community of support and practice right now by talking about this very important concept of mindfulness to be able to take care of ourselves. And then the last one is Yoga Nidra, which Nidra is sleep in Sanskrit. And Jill teaches a Nidra class. I don't know if you're currently teaching a Nidra class, Jill, but we have many resources for how you could bring this into your day or use it to support those that you're working with. Next slide, please. And the benefits of mindfulness and yoga are here. I add this slide so that you have this to share with yourself or with others if they are not really buying into this idea of taking time to think about mindfulness or yoga. So in the middle is a word cluster of just all of the different things that come out of the benefits or the practice of mindfulness and yoga. But I would bet actually a fair amount of money that we are all working or living and loving people who need to have more opportunity for mindfulness to be able to have more joy in their days or in their lives. Next slide, please. And then bringing yoga and mindfulness to your work. I think we've given you those ideas today. Get curious, move your body, act like children. So start with you, but definitely start with you. Take from it what you can so that you can then be there for the different individuals that you're supporting. And there's a bubble for each, you, children, and then what it does for the environment. And when I walk into a school where it's peaceful, supportive, and calm, especially, well, any school, but because we're all in this early childhood community right now, walking into an early childhood program where it's peaceful, supportive, and calm, you just have to admit that that feels really good. So, next slide, please. This slide, when you get this, is linked to a video where this young lady is walking you through that shaking exercise that we did here, or we did a little bit ago. When I asked Megan to find it, I forgot I had moved it to the end, but it takes you to a YouTube video. It's about, I think, a 10-minute video where the first 3 minutes are just shaking, and then from there, it just goes through a gentle yoga flow practice that I think if you want to get curious and find out about yoga, that might be a video that works for you. I don't know why I have a 23 there, but sorry about that. Next slide, please. At the end of this, on the credits, anything that is in blue is actually linked out to something that we've talked about today that you're welcome to use. I've provided the slides to Megan in both PowerPoint form and PDF form so that you have full access. I give you complete permission to take the slides, adapt for yourselves if you'd like to. That's what this is all about. And if you look to the third from the bottom item where it says mindfulness and yoga book list, Megan, if you click on that, it should open something up. And then I'm sorry, I'm probably going way over time. So this is just direct links for books that you can use with children and adults that will support mindfulness and support the practice of yoga. So there are 2 tabs there. And this is just a subcomponent of a Google site that Jill and I built when we were doing our yoga teacher training. But as I work with children and families with yoga, for yoga, I just keep updating this list of resources of books that I have found helpful, and I know Jill has found helpful also. So that, if it's blue, go ahead and click on those so that you can figure out what's out there for you. You don't have to, Megan, just in general. Thank you. And that does it. At the bottom, at the end of this slide, is the information for getting a hold of Jill or myself to support you if you'd like it. Otherwise, Jill and I wish you well, and we're here if you have questions.
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely presentation. I really enjoyed it. I got a lot out of it, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, I did not realize it was like 5 o'clock, so I apologize. So much for 25 minutes, Megan.
Yeah, you're okay. It was so wonderful to hear from you both, so I didn't want to interrupt at all.
And I'll end, thank you so much, everyone. I'll end, I am, because I'm always looking for ways to try to bring some joy and some calm. I am right now teaching a gentle healing, which is by the hospital. And I teach on Wednesday nights, actually here in just about a half an hour, Miss Terri, so I'm gonna have to scoot out. But I do offer that to anyone who works with children. It's just a $1 to $5 donation. So it's at 5:30 on Mondays. And that money just goes to Robin Lund, who owns the studio, for letting us use the studio. And it's just kind of a gentle yoga is for everybody class. And it's a chance to be mindful and to let go of your day. So I absolutely invite you to come and check it out, because it's just a great way to start the week.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. It was such a pleasure to have you. If anybody has time, if we want to stick around for quick updates from the task forces, or I can just get those from our facilitators and provide them in the minutes and give everybody back 5 minutes to go practice mindfulness instead. Yes. My thought for the books that Terri has to raffle off is, when I send out the minutes, the first 2 people to reply back to me who want the book, I will make sure that you can get it in return. So it'll be both a way for me to prove that people read my emails, but also to make sure that people who really want the book are able to get it. So
I like it.
perfect.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.